Hey everyone, welcome back to the Higher Running Podcast. I don't even know what episode this is. We'll put it on the description box up there to sort it, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time we did a podcast, but we're here.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in. We got a great topic to talk about today. Kind of goes back to the whole athlete-coach relationship, coaching philosophy, what a coach's job is, or how we would define it, at least at Higher Running. You want to elaborate more on that as I crack open my beverage here?
I think the main point of this podcast is going to be what we consider personal coaching, because we've realized in the past few years, but especially like this year, for whatever reason this year, like I realized there's a lot of confusion about what personal coaching actually is. So we feel like as coaches, maybe part of our job to help the space become better is to share what we think personal coaching is.
Yes, personal coaching, individualized coaching, a lot of semantics. Before I start talking about that, I'm going to tell you what I'm drinking here. Dale's Double IPA, Oscar Blues Brewery. Shout out to Longmont, Lyons, Boulder County area. An old throwback here.
Hashtag not sponsored.
I'm still have a relationship with Avery, but love Elevation Brewery out here in Poncha is our local one now. But always love craft beer as a special treat, so I don't abstain. But anyway, I digress. Individualized, personalized coaching, like Sandy said, I think there's like a certain obligation as a coach in this space maybe to, well, help empower others, help empower athletes. That's one of our mottos at Higher Running. And through that comes with knowledge and education, but also attention and time. And as a coach, I know, well, at least Sandy, with her individual coaching clients and all our coaches at Higher Running, you have to devote a certain amount of time, I feel, to really get to know your athlete, look into their background, and then to be able to look at their training objectively and also relate to them on a personal level, maybe less objectively, but and to be able to feel how an athlete might be feeling after a hard workout or after they get sick during their training cycle or something like that. You want to elaborate on the process, I guess? If you're taking in a new athlete, what is individualized, personalized coaching at Higher Running when we take on clients?
Yeah, and well, I'll start off with saying like I've been coaching over a decade now, and I learned a lot over those past 10 years. So if you're a coach listening to this and you're not quite doing the same, or you feel like you could be doing better, like I don't want to make anyone feel bad. Like I learned a lot from mentors over the years, and so that's what I'm kind of hoping to do here is just to help, again, like bring everybody up. So when I get an athlete, there's normally initially like an email exchange, and there can be like an initial call, just like a quick like 15-20 minutes just to make sure it's a good fit. Or sometimes like the nice thing about having some presence on social media, and even though like I don't do a lot of YouTube anymore, I still like share some YouTube shorts. So people, or I share like posts on Instagram too. So people already have like a feel for who I am, which is great. That kind of helps move things along a little bit. And so after somebody already feels like, okay, I'm the right fit, I have them fill out a pretty comprehensive, what I would call like an athlete intake form or athlete questionnaire. And it covers a lot from background, races, weaknesses, strengths, their schedule, a lot of different moving parts in that person's life, past injuries. It's a pretty long form. And then they answer the questions, and I'm really good at asking questions. So there's always follow-up questions. And that's when I set up a meeting to like go over the whole athlete intake form and their answers, and I ask them all my follow-up questions, and then it gives them another chance to ask me questions. And then based off of that, then I can start creating a plan for this athlete.
Yeah, so It's like a consultation, basically. You know, there's back and forth exchange. They have options with communication, not just, you know, it could be a phone call, it could be a Zoom call, Google Meet type of call, exchanges with detailed emails, a lot of text, because we see each athlete as an individual, right? We have people training for a 5K or 10K half marathon on the roads. Maybe it's their first half marathon. We have experienced ultra runners doing 100-mile mountain races and everything in between. Boston Marathon qualifying times and different age ranges. You know, someone in their 20s versus someone in their 50s or 60s or older, and different levels of runners. Brand new runners that just started running in the last year or two to people that have been running for decades. So I think the biggest thing with the intake form that I've seen is the importance of relative weekly mileage. Like, what have they been handling in the past? Where can we start them off? And then injury history. Sometimes people have been in a car accident, or they broke their ankle snowboarding or skiing or something like that. So they have like a lingering sensitive area, and you could say, okay, well, we don't want to push you up to super high mileage too quick because we don't want to aggravate an injury. So there could be very individual things there. We're not going to just throw you into a cookie cutter copy and paste workout plan, because we realize that we have to meet you where you're at as an athlete. Is that kind of the gist of what you described there already? I don't mean to...
No, I think that covers a lot. I could go into so much more detail, but I honestly think it would be kind of boring, and we covered the main bases. But yeah, and then from there, start creating a plan from scratch. And so to me, that's a big part of personal individualized coaching, is creating everyone's plan from scratch. Even though like we do sell training plans on our website, I never use those for any of my athletes. Typically what I do, and this is a little bit old school, but this is the way I learned from Lorraine Moeller when I took a Lydiard course like over 10 years ago, to have it like a sheet of paper, like a kind of like a big calendar, and to start writing things out. So like on the top of the sheet, I'll write some things from the athlete intake form, just things I want to like very clearly remember. And then we'll see like Monday through Sunday, and then kind of above the days of the weeks, I'll write out like when an athlete is busiest and needs or should take a rest day, or needs like a lighter day of training, what days they have the most time. And that way, like I'm always keeping that in mind. And then typically what I do, again, like I have all this information from the athlete in present in my head, and then I'll like kind of section out of, if they have a goal race, I'll section out different parts of the plan leading up to the goal race. And so like the first few weeks, I'll do a marathon runner, just to get my thoughts organized. And so the first few weeks might be like base training, and then I like to get more specific as somebody goes towards a race. So then depending on this is where it really depends on the injury history. If no like big injuries, then I might do like a 5K, 10K training block. And then we might move more into lactate threshold stuff. And then we might move into like really specific marathon stuff. And it's not like I say blocks, but everything's kind of like integrated always throughout the plan. It's just like there's more of a focus during certain periods. So like 5K, 10K training, there might be a bigger focus on short intervals. Like that's like really the key session. Even if there is tempo runs, the tempo sessions might be a little bit smaller, but as we move up closer to the marathon, then like tempo runs become, or I should say lactate threshold runs become more of a main focus. Still shorter intervals, but not quite as much as a focus. So I plan that out. I don't always write out sometimes I'll make it like a rough draft from the race backwards, and like put in like all the key workouts. But it depends on where the person is at. I'll always do like a few weeks at a time, but me having that guide of these different blocks of training is huge, because that way I'm making sure I'm getting in everything I think the athlete needs to be successful for their goal race.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, you know, I do the paper training outline first too as well. And it's very time consuming. It's very time consuming, and it's very individualized, because we realize people have totally different work schedules. Some people work more on the weekends and then they do their long run on a Tuesday. Some people have big family obligations or they're traveling a lot, and we have to adjust things constantly around this framework. But also your timeline is probably totally different from another athlete we may be coaching. And you may be coaching someone for the Boston Marathon and they have 4 months. Another person might be training for the LA Marathon, which is, a month earlier. So like, of course you wouldn't have them on a same sort of sequence of schedules. You talk about periodization or how the training changes over time. That needs to be very specific to the individual's timeline. And then I think we could get into like their relative goals, right? Like, you're messing with people's dreams and goals as a runner, as an athlete. Like, that's a lot of sensitive power. Like, it's something you should be proud of. It's also a big responsibility, though. Dreams and goals and empowerment are, and people's health. You're in charge of that to some extent. So, like, working with an athlete, developing that relationship, developing something personal that is going to help them thrive is very specific just to that person. So, if you were using a cookie cutter plan, that could be totally not ideal for someone else in someone else's shoes, right? For a different athlete. It could be too much for them too soon. So I think it would be irresponsible if people were like on the same training plan, so to speak. And, full disclaimer, we do sell static training plans at our business Higher Running. And I think we set the price point intentionally, way, way lower than individualized, personalized coaching because of the time commitment on our end. But also, full disclaimer, we're trying to be transparent with it. If we're selling a static training plan, we try to give you the guidelines, the prerequisites on the website, and let you choose the level if you want 5K level 1, 5K level 2. If you're trying to qualify for Boston, it's more aggressive than a beginner marathon plan. But that's the difference with the static plans, which we sell at a much lower price point, versus the full-on individualized, personalized coaching with all this communication and all this individualization. And that's what we call personal individualized coaching and a custom training plan of workouts that's constantly evolving and changing too.
Yeah, I just want to add that I love that you said when you're a coach, you have somebody's goals and dreams partially in your hands, and it is a lot of responsibility. And every time I sit down to work with my athletes, I try to remember that. That's so important. And you did make me think of an example I could use. So this past year, I coached 2 athletes for the Chicago Marathon. Pretty close in time. Then they both got PRs. One ran low 250s, the other ran high 240s, like 248. And so they're pretty close, but like they're even like fairly close in age, but their training plans were totally different. And that's because they live in 2 different places, 2 totally different work schedules, 2 different lifestyles. And like one person, he had less experience training for the marathon. And so looking at his past training, I couldn't be as aggressive if he had a little bit more experience. Where the woman I coach, she's been with me for a while, and so I've seen and learned over time how much she can handle, and also like when, based on what else she has going on in her life. But then they also lived in 2 different climates. Like the guy lived in, I would still say it's altitude, around like 4,000 feet, but also very hot. And it was hot for a lot of the training cycle, even like close up to race day. And so that made me think of like how I need to schedule his lactate threshold runs and runs that were supposed to be more of a marathon pace stimulus. Because when it's like 90 degrees and you're at 4,000 feet, like you cannot run nearly as fast as you can when it's like 50 degrees at sea level. And so when things like that are in play, I'm typically breaking up somebody's lactate threshold runs or even up-tempo runs into like shorter intervals so they can hit a slightly faster pace than they could otherwise in those conditions. And so there's just a lot at play, even when somebody has similar time goals. Yeah,
The details really matter,
it does.
not just between the training environments, but the individual athletes, because we want to respect you as an individual to help empower you. And, there could be a difference in recovery, fast twitch to slow twitch muscle fibers, and how an athlete responds to certain workouts. So, I think one issue and one reason why we did the podcast here is to talk about how, there's definitely some programs out there in the space, and I'm not just saying it's in road marathon running. We've seen it, I've heard of it in triathlon, road marathon running, ultra trail running coaches running these big programs where maybe they're not giving that individualized attention. Maybe they're hitting copy and paste for the same workouts, and they have a lot of athletes maybe all on the same relative schedule, which I think is kind of misleading and could be a disservice to the community, to the athletes, because like you said, if one person shouldn't be doing the same workout as the other person on the same day of the week, probably, because they're two totally different people. Even if they're both training for the same marathon race or ultra marathon, you have to individualize. And it's not just scaling back from, oh, this person does 8 by a kilometer, this person does 6 by a kilometer. It may be this person is doing 2-mile repeats at tempo or threshold, and the other person does VO2 max kilometer repeats, right? Totally different workouts on totally different days. You shouldn't be doing, I've heard of too many stories now of athletes that have been coached kind of en masse, and it's, they find out that they're kind of just on this cookie cutter, similar schedule, and then, maybe you get overtrained or hurt or something horrible. Hopefully not, but it's a tough thing if you think you're paying a monthly, fee for individualized coaching, and it's like that.
Yes, and I think the main issue is people think they're getting one-on-one coaching, plans made from scratch, and they're not. And they don't find that out till later. And so then we hear the stories of how people feel like they've been misled and they wasted a lot of money. And it was a negative experience for them, which is sad. And like we're not perfect. Like everybody makes mistakes. But I try not to mislead people. And I don't even know if the coaches are trying to mislead people. I just think the space grew so fast that there weren't certain standards set. And so what I hope for coaches listening to this is that there's just more honesty and transparency in the space. So if somebody is coaching a lot of athletes at once, just be very clear and upfront about that on your website or when you're talking about your coaching. Don't lead people on thinking that you make plans from scratch, or if you have kind of static plans that you just tweak for each athlete. Be clear about that. People deserve that, and as a coach, you have to hold yourself to high standards. And again, people make mistakes, but this is really just making the space better for everybody.
You mentioned numbers of athletes you coach at a time, because we've heard crazy numbers, right? So what, in your opinion, is the limit, so to speak? You coach full time. It's a full-time job. You're working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, basically. Maybe 363. We take Christmas off. But it's a lot of work to do real personalized, individualized coaching, right? So you hear stories of people having, a certain number of athletes. I'll throw out, a really big number, over 50 or 60 athletes at one time. Can you keep track of that if you're really doing personalized, individualized coaching?
I could never coach that many athletes. And so talking to other coaches that I know, and I also had posted something within the past month that had a lot of other coaches chime in about how many athletes they coach. And so from what I learned, for a full-time coach, the range is normally around 20-ish, maybe even as low as 15 for some coaches, up to 35-ish. And some of that depends on if that coach has different levels of coaching. And so you might have one tier where you're checking training plans and providing communication like 5 days a week, and then you might have another tier where maybe you're just checking their plan like and reviewing a plan like once a week and providing comments and feedback and analyzing training. And so like depending on those just different tiers, then like somebody could have more. Typically I don't like to go much above 20, and as Sage was saying, like we do have other aspects of our business that if we didn't have, then maybe I would coach up to like 25. But I'm so like hands-on and analytic that I don't think I could ever do more than 25. And I do want to touch on this too. Like I've realized over this conversation in the past few months of us having this conversation before we even filmed this, that we could do a better job of being more transparent on our website. And so we just had a team meeting a couple days ago on this. We're getting everybody on our team on the same page so I can redo the website a little bit and clearly post about the services we offer, exactly what to expect, and about how many athletes each coach coaches. So yeah, we're doing our part to be as honest and transparent as possible too. And again, like we realize when we can do better, and we admit that. And I think that's part of being a good person and good coach, is recognizing, hey, I have work to do too, and I can admit that, and hopefully other people will follow.
The general consensus, is 25, 30 athletes. I'd say that's really a full-time job, full-time gig. You're working 7 days a week. You're providing feedback multiple times a week. All the plans or the programs for each athlete is highly individualized, right? There's no cookie cutter stuff going on. Like you're analyzing their workouts too as individuals. You're not just giving them a simple one-liner. You're digging into the details of their heart rate, of their pace, of their comments, their feedback. You're giving them strength training recommendations sometimes. It's a daily feedback type of cycle, and it's an open channel of communication with the individual athlete, and you're tweaking their plans very slightly too as you go along. Maybe they get a cold, or they get sick, or they have a slight niggle, and or they have a work trip come up last minute, family vacation, and you gotta constantly be moving things around and adjusting things and hemming and hawing over the fine details and the nuances of the workouts. And that's really the art of coaching. It's science and an art. But I think at the individual level, if you're really coaching athletes, and again, what you described with our higher running coaches, they all do that. They get out the pen and paper, they do the individual consultations, they outline the plan. It's very individualized, it's very specific. And I think, the big outfits in the coaching world that have done more cookie cutter, copy and paste types of workouts that are all very similar, in my book, that's not real personalized, individualized coaching. That's a cookie cutter plan, and that's how it should be advertised, and that's how it should be priced accordingly. But we've seen all sorts of crazy variations in the marketplace, so to speak, I'd say.
Yeah. And I'll say, if somebody coaches like that, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, because if it's a lower cost, and they price it and say it that way, I just think they need to say what they're doing, because not everybody can afford like highly personalized coaching, right? And so it's okay if there's like a step down from that that's more affordable for people. It just needs to be advertised that way.
There's no reason I could keep track of more than like 30 athletes at a time and be able to actually really dial into them. Otherwise, we'll do the tracer plug now, I guess. So we still sell static training plans, low price point, higher running. You can check them out, different levels. But also, and this is a full disclaimer, business plug, we're vested in, and we've been working with Tracer for this. Something maybe a little bit more, we'd say, in between the personalized coaching and the static training plans is what we've been doing with Tracer programs, and we call that dynamic plans. And if you go to the Tracer website, we'll link to it below, but we have, a higher running 50K program on there. We've got some more programs coming your way if you subscribe to Tracer. that, full disclaimer, we're honest and transparent about what it is. It's a dynamic training plan. It's coming from a library of workouts, and it's personalizing to some degree, not like our individualized coaching at all. Hence, the price point is kind of in between the static plans and individualized coaching. But it uses fielding questions, not a full consultation, but fielding questions to kind of develop a level of a training program that's customized to your level, your goals, your paces, and then it uses, and full disclaimer here, it uses AI technology that's been programmed by both Sandi and I personally over a lot of hours to try to reflect our coaching philosophy. So, there is a library of workouts. They come in at different levels, but how it sequences things in the Tracer program is individualized, and not only that, it is based to some degree on your daily feedback, because if you get sick, you could note that down in the app, and then it'll dynamically adjust the training plan for you. So think of it as like our static plans plus another level, because it's constantly adjusting. You could put in different preferences. If you always don't want to run on Sunday, you could say Sunday's my rest day, I never run there. Maybe you have a last minute family vacation or work trip that's coming up. You could put that into the calendar on Tracer, and it'll shift around the workouts and also change the stress of the workout. If you get really sore, you could provide that daily feedback as well. So it's not individualized coaching. It's not nearly the level that we have at Higher Running with all our coaches, but it is what we call a dynamic training plan, which is different from our PDF static plans. And I will say our static plans do come with a whole training guide that's like a whole booklet. It's got some strength training recommendations. It's got all sorts of detailed text on exactly how to do certain workouts and how you should feel, and recommendations for preparing for hard workouts and race days and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we added some videos, which will be hopefully on the 50K plan already or very soon. And I'm really excited about that, because I feel like video makes it feel like a little bit more like we are coaching you. So I was excited for that.
All right, hashtag end sponsored ad business
that
plug.
Was plenty. Good job, Sage.
Check out Tracer. We have a vested interest. We work with them. Full disclaimer. Trying to be transparent here, which I think is important. So to wrap up the podcast,
To wrap up, so if you're an athlete considering a coach, don't be afraid to ask questions and advocate for yourself. So don't be afraid to ask a coach, how many athletes do you coach? What does communication look like? Are your plans made from scratch, or do you have like one plan for certain distances and you kind of just tweak it for certain athletes? I did a post on the Higher Running Instagram account on October 30th with more questions you could ask, and I'm sure you could think of more. So don't be afraid to interview, because remember that you're a paying customer, and so get your money's worth, or make sure you're going to get your money's worth.
Yeah, they've got your running goals and your dreams in their hands. That's a lot of power to take on, a lot of responsibility. And, depending on the financial price point, the monthly subscription, you should know what level of personalization and individualization the coach is actually putting into your training plan and your workouts. And, for a certain price point, I definitely would not say they should be the same workouts as someone else you might know that's also coached by the same coach, and you're doing the same workout on the same day. That would be a little unnerving, I think.
Yeah, but on that note, so if you're a coach listening to this, again, we don't want to make anyone feel bad. That's not our intention. We just want to make everyone better, because we're not doing this for ourselves, because I'm full. I don't have any more space to take athletes. Most of the coaches at Higher Running, they're full. So we don't have a financial interest in this. We really just want to bring up the space. So again, it comes down to being honest and transparent about what you offer.
Yeah, we are full with individual athletes because we don't take over 25 or 30 or 35 athletes at one time, because that's the level of individualization and personal coaching that we want to deliver with all our coaches at Higher Running. So That's just our method. That's how we do things. And I think it's important that, people are aware of that. And so doing this podcast was a way to try to just, let you know about things that are going on in the coaching endurance athlete world space and coaching space. And yeah, to hopefully not, be overtrained or get injured, because it could be quite different depending on what level you're at and who you pick or what training plan you pick to get coached for your goals and dreams in running.
Yeah, and actually on that note, I tell my athletes this all the time, like, what you think as an athlete, like, comes first. Like, if you feel like you're starting to get overtrained, like, you have to communicate that. And if somebody doesn't adjust things for you so you don't cross that line into, like, overtraining, that's, like, a good sign that somebody's not listening to you and that maybe it's not the right coach for you. Like, advocate for yourself. But again, like, the whole purpose, let's bring the space up. You don't need to call anyone out. I always say that I can say what I need to say without being an asshole, and so that's what we're trying to do here. Our intention really is, like, let's make this space better.
Yeah, be transparent, be honest, be ethical, and realize, it is an issue that we want to bring up because there's multiple outfits out there in the endurance space, from triathlons to road running to ultra running, ultra trail running, that we've heard kind of maybe doing things a lot differently, and it's caused some injuries and people have been frustrated. So we want to help represent and empower all you runners out there at all levels, any surface, any distance. That is our motto at Higher Running: athlete empowerment, athlete education. I mean, we sell a training course on how to build your own, how to coach yourself, basically.
And we'll be updating that hopefully early 2025.
Obviously, this is a business plug for our brand, but we do appreciate all your support on here on the Higher Running podcast, following our Instagram on Higher Running, subscribing to the YouTube channel here at Higher Running, because we're going to do audio-only versions as the podcast, but then also this full video is on YouTube on our YouTube channel. So that is Higher Running. Check it out. Anything else you want to add in closing, Kier?
I think that's it. We truly appreciate your support for this video, and if you've been with us for years, like, really, like, we appreciate you so much. We couldn't do this without you.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well, and stay tuned for more Higher Running content.